Hey folks, this is Kalani. Gearing up in World of Warcraft has never been easier for solo players, even though it may seem like all of the new content in patch 10.2 is for the folks who run the raid or do Mythic Plus keys, but that's not true. Solo players have a lot of different options for how to get gear, and you can actually get a pretty high item level without having to jump into the harder endgame group content. Some of these gearing options might not be immediately obvious, so we're going to go through every gearing option you have as a solo content focused player and show you how you can get up to item level 476 all by yourself. Now before we jump in, be sure to hit up that like button and subscribe so you never miss another video. There are a lot of different gearing options available to everyone, even those players who don't want to do group content. The new Emerald Dream Zone is going to be one of the better sources of quick gear thanks to the 3 new weekly quests you can complete here. A worthy ally Dream Orders will ask you to earn 1500 reputation in the zone, super easy especially with the buff to the Emerald Bounty Rep rewards. Blooming Dream Seeds asks you to plant 5 seeds, again pretty easy with all of the different sources of seeds in the zone. And then the Super Bloom event also has a weekly quest which just asks you to complete the event at least once in that week. All of these quests have a chance to reward you with up to item level 450 gear, which can be upgraded all the way to 463. All 3 quests are super easy, quick and simple, so you can get 3 pieces of gear per week just by completing these quests, and then you'll be well on your way to gearing up. All of this gear can also be used in the Catalyst, so it's worth holding onto any pieces you get that are in tier slots, so that's head, shoulders, chest, hands and legs, even if they don't have good stats for you right now. When you use the Catalyst to turn them into tier set pieces, the stats might change anyway, and the tier set bonus will provide you with a huge power spike, even if the gear is a lower item level, so make sure you're getting your weekly quests done in the Emerald Dream Zone. It's basically free gear at this point. I love it when we get new patches in WoW, especially with new zones to explore, but I also enjoy exploring other worlds like the fantasy world of Tamaris in Call of Dragons. In Tamaris, humans, orcs and elves live side by side in an uneasy balance, but the fires of war are spreading across the land. With each quest, raid and event, explore the story of this stunning magical realm and explore mysterious caves and ancient ruins to find hidden treasures and secrets just waiting to be discovered. There are so many different ways you can play. You can team up to defeat powerful behemoths in raids which require you to formulate and execute strategies with your allies to take down fearsome beasts, or fight alongside hundreds of allies in guild vs guild alliance battles, and command your legions your way in both PvE and PvP scenarios with real-time strategic controls and combat. You can also recruit powerful heroes, hone their skills and equip them with powerful artifacts to lead your troops into battle. There's a lot of freedom in how you shape your town too. Build whatever you want, wherever you want, in a style that suits you best. So use our link in the description or scan the QR code on screen to download Call of Dragons on PC or mobile and explore the world of Tamaris today. Now getting back to the video, 3 pieces of gear per week is nice, but that's not going to cover everything, so let's look at a few ways to fill in the gaps in your gear. World quests can sometimes offer you adventurer gear around the 430 item level mark. It's not a super reliable source of gear, but at least when a reward pops up, you'll know exactly what you're going to get. Killing rares can also drop item level 428 gear on the adventurer track, but they don't seem to drop gear that often, so it's not a reliable source either. I guess the dev team doesn't want us spamming rares like in previous patches. You can also pop back to some older world content to take advantage of their upgraded rewards. The Dream Surge Zone has 2 vendors, one that sells 415 gear for the Dream Surge Coalescence currency, which you can get by doing activities in the Dream Surge Zone, and then the other vendor sells 428 gear that costs a special token that you can only get once per week from the Dream Surge weekly quest. The Time Rifts over in Thaldraszus also drop a weekly token which can be traded in for more 428 gear, including trinkets, so they are a great source of those pesky trinkets which always seem to be one of the last pieces of gear you get. The 428 pieces here can also be turned into the previous season's tier set gear at the Revival Catalyst without using a charge, so if you want to use the old 2 set and 4 set bonuses to give your character a little boost, that is an option you may not know about. Ideally, you would use the new set bonuses, but the older ones are better than none. You can also run Heroic Dungeons if that's something that interests you. Heroic Dungeons drop item level 428 as well, which starts on the Adventurer track and it can be upgraded all the way to 450. Not bad for some easy queuable content. So there are a lot of sources of 428 Adventurer gear which can be upgraded to 450, it just depends on what kind of content you want to take part in. Another quick source of some potentially huge upgrades is the new world boss in the Emerald Dream Zone. You can kill Aura Store once per week for a chance at loot, and I don't know if I'm just super lucky this season, but I've actually gotten a piece of gear on every character I've killed it on so far, so maybe they increase the rate of rewards for the world boss in 10.2? Not too sure. Either way, there is a chance for you to get item level 460 gear from the world boss, which should be a big upgrade for most players, and that gear also starts on the champion track, so it can be upgraded all the way to 476. Now, to upgrade any of this gear and unlock its true potential, you're going to need some crests, mainly whelping and drake crests to start out with. You can get whelping crests from lower tiers of world content, including world quests, looting treasures and killing rares, as well as from low tiers of group content like LFR and low mythic plus keys. But perhaps one of the easiest ways to get whelp crests is to head on over to the Dream Surge event area in the Dragon Isles. The weekly quest here will reward you with some whelp crests, which is definitely nice, but there's a super easy way to farm crests in these areas. When the Dream Surge is active, you can find these floating green balls all over the zone. Flying through them rewards you with some Dream Surge coalescence currency, which can be used to buy that 415 gear from earlier, but you also get whelping crests. From what I've seen, you usually get 1 to 4 crests per green ball you fly through, and that's most of the time, but sometimes they can reward way more. The most I've seen is 42 from a single green orb, but I've also gotten between 10 and 16 plenty of times. I'm not sure if this is a bug or just random luck, but these orbs are absolutely everywhere. They also respawn, so you can just collect green balls until you're maxed out on whelp crests. It's crazy how quick it can be. Just for the sake of science, I took my demon hunter who had 0 whelp crests, and I managed to cap out with 270 crests in just about 30 minutes. So if you can benefit from 447 gear, this method should help out immensely. As for Drake crests, you're mainly relying on weekly quests and activities. The 3 weekly quests in the Emerald Dream Zone should reward you with Drake crests when you complete them or open your bag, and then you can also kill rare elites and take part in the Emerald Bounty event. Planting seeds and contributing to their growth should yield at least 2 Drake crests per seed bloom if the contribution level was high enough, so that is a really easy repeatable source of Drake crests. Just play dot to dot on the map and contribute to as many Emerald bounties as you can. And then we come to crafted gear. This is actually an amazing source of gear, both in terms of quickly increasing your item level early on, but also for working towards some of the best gear you can get as a solo player. You're able to get item level 476 crafted gear if you follow all these tips properly. To start with, you can craft a lot of 447 gear fairly quickly and easily, and the only thing you really need is a few whelping crests. 30 whelp crests can be turned into a piece of 447 item level gear, which is really good when you think about it. Because it's crafted gear, you get to choose which slot that gear fills and what stats it can have as well. So its upgrade potential isn't quite as high as some of the weekly quest loot from earlier, but this is the perfect gear to fill in those lower item level slots that you are struggling to replace. To make the gear, you'll need an enchanted whelping dreaming crest. This costs a few enchanting materials you can buy from the auction house super cheap, and then you also need a nascent whelping crest, which you can buy from an enchanting vendor for 30 whelping crests. That's all you need. Take that enchanted crest and either craft an item with it or create a work order with it. Note that the recipes that use these lower tier enchanted crests are the blue or rare recipes most of the time, so plug in your enchanted whelp crest. Remember to use a missive to choose the stats that you want if you do want to do that, and then voila, easy 447 gear. You can create as many of these as you want, or for as many whelping crests as you have. These pieces of gear have been great for filling in my mains gear slots, and that's even while I'm clearing the raid on normal and heroic. Any pieces that I had below 447, I just crafted with the whelping crest, so it's definitely worth looking into. This may be one of the fastest ways to gear up a new character or alt right now. We currently have a seasonal cap of 270 whelping crests. You could use all of those crests to craft 9 pieces of 447 gear, which covers more than half of your gear slots right now, and we'll be able to get even more whelp crests with every weekly reset. Add on the weekly quests, the world boss, and some other sources, and you can get to 450 super quickly. Just fly around the Dream Surge, collect green balls, and turn it all into gear. Crafted gear goes beyond that though. You can get up to item level 476 crafted gear as a solo player fairly easily. The first thing you're going to need is a spark. All of the higher tier crafted items need a spark to reach those higher item levels. For Season 3, the sparks that we are interested in are called Sparks of Dream. The only way to get these sparks is to combine 2 splintered Sparks of Dream, and the only way to get those is through a weekly quest. You have 2 options here. The Worthy Ally weekly quest that we covered earlier in the Emerald Dream Zone is the most common option. Complete that, open up the bag, and you'll get 1 splintered spark. Or you can pop on over to Valdraken to the PvP area, and there are a few weekly quests here from Militia that also reward a bag of goodies. Whichever weekly quest you complete first will reward you with your splintered spark, but you can only ever get 1 splinter per week, so keep that in mind. With 2 splinters per week, we can get 1 spark every 2 weeks, so we can craft a new piece of gear every 2 weeks. When you use the Spark of Dreams to craft a piece of gear, its item level will be between 450 and 463 depending on the rank you get it crafted at. Seeing as we always want to craft it at the highest possible rank, you should always try for a rank 5 item, meaning you should always get a piece of 463 gear when you use a spark. So that's pretty decent, right? A new piece of gear every 2 weeks, you get to choose the slot that it occupies, and you get to choose the stats on it. That alone should be incentive enough to get your splintered sparks every week. But if you do happen to miss a week, you don't need to worry. Pretty much any endgame content can reward you with a missed splinter up until the point where you get caught up to everyone else. So killing raid bosses, even on LFR, doing dungeon runs, PvP wins, and maybe even some of those weekly quests and events, you can catch up with your splinters pretty easily, so don't sweat it if you miss 1 or 2. Where this system really shines though is with the higher tier enchanted crests. We can't really get our hands on aspect crests as solo players, so the only one we can easily acquire is the enchanted Wyrm's Dreaming Crest. This is more or less the same thing as the whelping crest from earlier. You need some enchanting materials, a Draconflight, and a nascent Wyrm Crest. The nascent crest comes from the enchanting vendor and costs 45 Wyrm Crests, so again the crests are going to be the real cost here. Wyrm Crests are harder to get for anyone who isn't doing more difficult group content. They usually drop from Mythic plus 11 keys or higher, or the raid on Heroic, but there are 2 ways you can get your hands on them in Season 3 that don't require anything too difficult. The first way is from the weekly vault. Usually the weekly vault is a great source of high item level gear, but only really if you are doing higher end group content. The system shines the best with Mythic Plus in terms of item level and with the raid in terms of rare loot potential, but even if you don't do those higher levels of group content, the weekly vault can be used to your advantage. For every loot option you have in the vault, you will also have the option to take 2 coins of merit at the bottom up to a cap of 6, so if you have 3 available rewards, you can instead take 6 coins. You can spend these coins at the vendor right next to the vault. There are a few things you can buy, but what I'm going to highlight for this video are the Wyrm Crests. You can trade 2 coins in for 15 Wyrm Crests, so if you get 6 coins per week, you can buy 45 Wyrm Crests per week. You can fill up your vault in a few ways by running LFR, getting some rated PvP done, or running some dungeons. Most of this might seem hard, but the dungeon row specifically was actually opened up to also include heroic dungeons, mythic 0 dungeons, and time walking dungeons. So when time walking comes around, that's going to be insanely easy to get some good progress in your weekly vault. For any other week, you can fill up the dungeon row just by queuing for and running heroic dungeons. You couldn't really ask for an easier way to fill up the vault. If you are interested, you would get item level 441 rewards in your weekly vault if you just did heroic dungeons to fill up that dungeon row, but buying the Wyrm Crests to be able to craft 476 gear is a better way of using your vault at that point. Now obviously if you get some raid finder bosses killed, that will help you on the raid row, but as long as you get 3 rewards you'll max out your coins per week, which gives you the most Wyrm Crests per week as well. And then the second way to get Wyrm Crests is from upgrading your crests. When you get to item level 463 in every gear slot, so when you can no longer benefit from using Drake Crests to upgrade your gear, at that point you will also be able to upgrade Drake Crests into Wyrm Crests, giving you access to even more Wyrm Crests every week. You'll know when you qualify for this because you will get the achievement Dreaming of Worms achievement. There should be an achievement for each gear breakpoint, so Dreaming of Drakes, Dreaming of Worms, and Dreaming of Aspects. You can trade trade your crests up at Vascarn in the Emerald Dream Camp. If you cannot see an option to trade up your crests here, it's either because you have not gotten the required achievement, or you have reached your cap for the crest you are trying to trade up to. You can technically do the same thing with aspect crests, when you can no longer use Wyrm Crests to upgrade your gear. You can trade Wyrm Crests up to aspect crests, but I will be honest, that doesn't seem sufficiently accessible for me to say that you can do that as a solo content player. So you can get at least 45 Wyrm Crests per week, with maybe some more later on if you can upgrade your Drake Crests. You need 45 Wyrm Crests to create the Enchanted Crest, which can upgrade your crafted gear item level to 476. This means you should be able to easily upgrade any crafted gear you make up to 476, and seeing as you can equip as many pieces of crafted gear as you want, you will eventually be able to equip a crafted piece in every slot. The only thing you have to wait for is the spark every 2 weeks. Every new spark you get can provide you with a big spike in item level, and you should get to the point where you already have enough Wyrm Crests when a new spark comes through, so you can upgrade that new piece of gear straight to 476. Any excess Wyrm Crests you get can be used to upgrade other gear options up to 476 as well, so getting those vault tokens is super important if you aren't clearing higher difficulties of the raid or pushing Mythic Plus keystones. It is a slow process, but it's relatively easy and it's guaranteed 476 gear. And then as a final note here, if you have the time, looking for raid is going to be super valuable the further we get into the season. Not only will you have a chance to get some gear on par with the outdoor world rewards like weekly events and quests, but you'll get access to tier set tokens to help you piece that together better. All LFR gear also works in the catalyst, so that's one more reason why raid gear is very valuable. But if you get behind with your Splintered Spark quests, any raid bosses that you kill on LFR have a high chance to drop your missed splinters, which gives you more access to more higher item level crafted gear. On top of that, raid kills in LFR count towards your weekly vault, which is one of the only reliable sources of Wyrm Crests for non-group focused players, and the more LFR bosses you kill and fill up your vault that way, the less heroic dungeons you're going to need to run. LFR bosses also drop Whelping Crests as well to help you craft any 447 gear to help fill in your gaps early on. I understand that LFR is technically group content, but it's queuable. You don't have to make any of the group yourself, you just sign up and wait, easily accessible, and it's really easy, so everyone can join the queue, pop into the raid and get some kills and some loot without too much worry. But that's how you can get to item level 476 all by yourself in Season 3 of Dragonflight. How do you feel about Season 3 so far? Are there enough gearing options for you? Do you think you can get a high enough item level, or do you think something is still missing? Leave all your thoughts in the comment section below. A big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon and all of our members here on YouTube. You can see the names floating by on screen. If you'd like to add your name to the end of every video with a special shout out at the start of the next video, you can find links in the description or to Patreon, or click the join button just below this video. And if you want to see more videos like this, make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss another video. Thanks for watching, folks. Good luck and have fun, and as always, I will see you next time.